For real, you know the deal. This is Uncut.
Was there a certain artist that actually made you say, all right, I'm gonna, it's time for me to step in the game, and you know, I want to start rapping?
It was Kool G Rap. It was definitely Kool G Rap. See, I go back with G Rap's former manager, a friend of mine named Bill Blass.
Oh, okay.
He passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. But he used to manage a few artists here and there, affiliated with the Juice Crew. He also managed Rakim. We used to bring these artists around my block when I was real young, man, like 10, 11 years old, you know. And I used to get to talk to them and just feel that aura, you know. And that hip hop was always in the air. Somebody always had the car outside. Like DJ Polo used to park in front of my house with a white Ford Mustang 5.0. He had turntables in the trunk. He used to open up the trunk and start cutting up right there on the spot. Once I heard G Rap, it was over, man. You know, I was a big West Coast fan before that. Like, I got put on the DOC. That was like the first tape I ever had. And then I always knew about the Kanes and the G Raps and the Rakims, but for some reason or another, I was never into the hip hop back then. Like, I was listening to classic rock and shit, man, like 80s.
Oh, like what kind of bands? Like
a Foreigner and then Spandau Ballet.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
I feel here.
Tears for Fears.
Word up, yeah.
Shit like that, man. You know.
That's good music.
Yeah, and then the hip hop came in, and then when I heard the West Coast dudes, the DOC and NWA, I became big fans. And then from there, I started looking into my own hometown dudes, and that's when I discovered the Kanes and the G Raps and all that stuff, and they started coming around. And then from there, the seed was just planted, man. Like I knew that I could do it one day. I started dabbling in poetry and shit like that, and then it just turned into writing.
Okay. Yeah, just like an interesting side note on DOC, I think he's the only guy that's had a baby with Erykah Badu that hasn't started wearing dashikis in head wraps. I mean, so that shows the strength of character right there. Because I'm pretty sure he's still wearing Raiders hats, and like, because the other three dudes, they kind of started going crazy.
Man, I hope so. And DOC, honestly, not even a West Coast dude. You know, he's from Texas.
Oh, of course. Yep.
But he had that West Coast sound because he was messing with Cuba and NWA.
Like, if you had like a dream team of like 3 people you could get on a song, if you could just pick anyone from any era, like what would be your, like, if your version of the Symphony, so it was you and 3 other MCs you could pick?
Man, that's a tough question, man, because there's so many. But you know, and no disrespect to the new school, because I love a lot of today's artists, man. But if it had to be 3, it would definitely be Rakim, Kool G Rap, and probably Big Pun. It's like every hood is the same, but it's not the same. You have different slang, different ways of dressing. You know, like Brooklyn was army fatigues and Timberlands. Queens was a lot of polo. Harlem niggas just used to like to dress pretty and hustle.
Right.
You know? They were about women and shit like that, man. Brooklyn was more about guns, Queens was about robbing dudes.
Okay.
But East New York, man, when I was there, and it's still not that great of a neighborhood today, but it was just a war zone when I was there. We were the murder capital of New York, and probably the United States at the time, during the years between 88 and 92.
All right, that was wild about, yeah.
Yeah, that was like the ending of the crack era, or maybe just the prime going into the ending. And shit, man, I can't tell you how many homicides in the neighborhood. And then we had the 75th precinct, which was in our district, which was the most corrupt police precinct in the world at the time.
Right.
They had to clean out the whole precinct. They made a movie about it too, man, with Denzel Washington. I forgot the name of it, but they tried to film in the actual precinct, in the actual neighborhood, and the precinct wouldn't allow it. So they went a couple of neighborhoods over.
Right.
But, it was just very surreal, man. Being a kid, you're not prepared for that. No kid should see that kind of stuff, that kind of violence, that kind of drug abuse, and just your community falling apart around you. And you don't realize how big the world is. Like now, we over here, we're in Brooklyn Heights. I never knew that Brooklyn, or anywhere in Brooklyn, could look like this when I was a kid. I never knew they had these beautiful parks and trees and birds chirping and shit like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was rough, man. It was rough.
So man, like, so how do you kind of deal with like living in that environment? Like that must have been, that's like a stressful, you know what I mean? Like that's like a war zone kind of thing almost for it, right? Like how do you cope with that?
You go through phases in environments like that. First is the adjustment, and then it's all right, second nature, and then after that it's just numbness.
Okay.
You're used to it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know anything else. You get so caught up in the same thing every day. The routine becomes normal to you, and you don't realize how bad the area is until you step out and come back. Like I had to actually move to Queens and then come back to my neighborhood, and when I came back to visit, I looked around and the first thing I said to myself was, man, how the fuck did I look like this? Like, how did I survive this shit? You had to run every 15 minutes. I buried myself in the park playing ball, but even over there it wasn't safe, you know? There was always gunshots going off, people fighting, getting stabbed, it's all kinds of craziness, man. You know?
So, I mean...
My friends dead in jail.
Alright, yeah, right.
I'm here though, too. And I represent each and every one of them.
Yep.
The ones who made it out.
Uncut, baby. What?